welcome to the Economic Club of Florida's 554th meeting in our series of distinguished speaker programs. My name is Lo Gilby. I have the privilege of being your president for this year. I now introduce Dominic Calabro, who will introduce our speaker. Dominic truly needs no introduction, but of course I will introduce him. Dominic has led Florida Tax Watch, as Tony said, for 42 years. Under Dominic's leadership, Tax Watch has earned and maintained the respect of the state's most highly regarded, influential leaders and has earned the credibility and respect of the citizens of Florida. Dom has been named by Florida Trend magazine as a must-know Floridian and named one of Florida Trend's 500 most influential business leaders for each of the last 3 years. I did not see the ranking of whether it was 500 or number one. He's a lifetime member of Leadership Florida and an immediate past member of the Leadership Florida Board of Directors. I'm pleased to tell you that Dominic is also past chairman of the Board of Directors of this club and has served for many years on our Board of Directors. Turn the meeting over to Dom to introduce our speaker.
Well, thank you very, very much. As a point of personal privilege, if you don't mind, I'd also really like to thank a few people of this club that have really helped transform when other clubs, both locally but especially around the country, have had real trouble keeping members and being relevant and engaged. These folks have really made a difference, starting with Cindy O'Connell. Cindy, thank you, and Bill Moore, thank you. Barney Bishop, and Lo, thank you as well. Really keeping it very, very relevant. Get to our star of the show is a very important person to me personally and to beautiful Florida. In addition to Tony, I'd like to recognize some of our staff that are here today. And, we actually have one of the new club members that are part of it. So, is your Tony Carvalho? Well said. If you would just raise your hand, just raise your hand, don't stand up. Steve Evans, Steve. We've got also Tina Greer, Tina. Kat Dunn. Also at the table, not on staff, but who we are beholden to, Cindy O'Connell's a board member, and and Mary Lou Rachel as a board member. We also have the back table, Tanya Beckel, Tanya. We have Chris Klena, Chris. Bob Nave, Governor Nave, back there, thank you. Jonathan Jareen, who's also one of the, 25 leading young influencers, political influencers that helped do some incredible public policy research. We also have Bradley Kusnier, and Meg Cannon. Jonathan's also a new member of the club, so thank you. And last but not least is a longtime former Florida Tax Watch economist, Dr. Jerry Parrish. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Well, folks, it's a really great, distinct privilege and honor to have invited, but also to have the chance to serve. As Tony said, we are really blessed with, and I think Tax Watch has been blessed by working on the shoulders of giant leaders in our community. Oh, Fred Kolensky as well. Fred, thank you for being a board member of Tax Watch. And Marva's one of those giants. Okay? Marva's just truly one of our giants. So, Marva Johnson is the Group Vice President, State Government Affairs, Charter Communications for the South region. She has a law degree from Georgia State University and a master's of MBA from Emory and a bachelor's degree from Georgetown. Little mom and pop kind of organizations, I understand. She oversees state government affairs and regulatory matters, not one, not two, not three, but 9 states in the southeastern United States where Charter Communications does business. Marva is considered instrumental in managing an incredible transition from Bright House, where she was employed, emerged into Charter and Time Warner in 2016. She's currently one of Marva's focuses of the expansion of broadband service to rural communities, and she will highlight some of the work that she's asked Tax Watch to do to help explain the importance of that. I think it's on your table as well. Marva serves on the boards of, first and foremost, Florida Tax Watch, and our executive committee is also our corporate secretary. She serves on the board of the State Board of Education, Enterprise Florida. Thank you, Marion. Thank you. And the Global Board of Women in Cable Telecommunications. Marva has previously been on the board of Virtual Florida School and the advisory board for Rollins College's Commerce Center for Leadership Development. She co-chaired Governor-elect Ron DeSantis' Transition Advisory Committee on Education and Workforce Development. She's previously worked as general counsel for the Supra Telecommunications and senior counsel of KMC Telecommunications. Marva has also held auditing, marketing, and product development positions with Martha Anderson, Bell South, and MCI. Additionally, Marva is also one of the Florida Trend's 500 most influential business leaders and joins the folks like Pat Neal, George Lemieux, U.S. Senator George Lemieux, our chairman, as well as my lucky self. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome for Marva Johnson.
Definitely very kind. I appreciate you. And you'll laugh because I'm going to talk about broadband, but I have my paper because I will always love paper. Call it the accountant and the attorney in me. So thank you all for this opportunity to share some thoughts today. Dominic talked about giants. I would say we are fortunate here in the state of Florida to have an organization like Florida Tax Watch to be a giant for our citizens and to be that watchdog for the hard-earned money that our families need, that we work every day to earn, and to make sure that the state is putting those funds to the best of use to have real long-standing value to help make sure that Florida continues to be one of the best places to live, work, and to raise a family. So I want to thank Tax Watch, and I also want to thank the Economic Club of Florida for giving me the opportunity to share the topic today on the closing the digital divide with each of you. I did go out and I looked at the website, and the club has had a number of prestigious speakers, and I started to feel a little bit inferior. I was like, oh my goodness, President Donald Trump, we had the former Federal Communications Commissioner, General Counsel, we had CFO Petronas address this august audience, and then I realized that the opportunity that I have today is not just because of who I am, but because of the significance of the topic that I want to talk with you all about, and that is really the effort to close the digital divide so that we can unlock some economic potential for the 2.3 to 2.4 million Floridians who don't have access, not to broadband, but who don't have access to world-class healthcare options from their home, who don't have access to additional supplemental world-class educational tools from their home, who don't have opportunities to expand their business beyond the four walls in whatever geographic area they live in, because in the area that they live in, they don't have access to the connectivity that brings that opportunity to their doorstep. So thank you all for this time today, and I will leave a little time at the end to answer questions. Harvey's like, I told you how to use that. So, and Dominic already mentioned a study that it's on your table. If you get a chance, I would certainly advise you to just thumb through it. We think and we understand what broadband means to each of us. I remember, do you all remember when we would drive our cars, we would go and we would get the MapQuest directions and we would print them out, and I would have a binder when I traveled with all of my MapQuest directions from point to point in my car with me that I looked at on paper. We also may even remember maps. Remember maps? You would put them in your glove compartment, and when you would travel with your family, you would pull them out to get a reference point. Because of the internet, it's completely changed our quality of life. It's completely changed the way we move through the world. And in that context, that's wireless broadband access that got me here today, right? I didn't pull my map out. So when you think about not just the economic impact that broadband has on each of our lives, but on the quality of life that we can actually enjoy because of broadband. It is a very important topic, and we all take it for granted, but again, there's at least 804,000 to 2.4 million Floridians who don't have that option. And what is the impact of that challenge to the bottom line for our state? As much as we want to make sure that we're friendly to everyone and we want to love every Floridian, the truth is it's not just an impact to the individuals who don't have access. It's actually a lost economic opportunity for the state itself, because for those students who don't have access to incremental educational content, and I don't have to tell people like Dr. Greco from Pinellas County that the reason we need access to broadband is not because of COVID and students have to work from home. It's because you need to extend the learning day every single day, not just during COVID, but all day, every day, and he's been doing that for over a decade. So when you think about the lost economic opportunity of $2.25 billion to nearly $17 billion that could be brought to the state through small businesses who need access to broadband, through telehealth options that would give healthcare access to many Floridians, and to changing the economic opportunities, which you and I know if you change education, you change the economic options for the students whose lives we're impacting. So that is why I thought it was a wonderful topic to talk with you all here today about. And again, if you get a chance, please read the study. Every month that goes by, and so Katie will laugh at me because she probably thinks, Marva, if I have to hear you ask one more time when that grant program is going to get launched. But let's, Katie Smith is with the Department of Economic Opportunity, and she is actually leading the state's effort to get broadband access and to partner to bring broadband access to many of these communities. But every month that goes by that these Floridians don't have access to broadband is actually costing our economy, or costing each collectively these individuals nearly $13.6 million a month, or on the upper end, it could be as much as $99 million a month. And you're probably wondering why that broad range, and it's simply because depending, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, depending on how many people you believe don't have access, and Katie's going to be leading the effort to actually develop a map, but depending on how many people don't have access to broadband, that number changes. We are fortunate because the Federal Communications Commission, at the end of 2020, they announced their awardees in a reverse auction process that will support extending broadband to census blocks, and we'll talk more about this, where there is zero broadband. So the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is a Federal Communications Commission program, will actually allocate dollars on a per location basis, on a per state basis, to service providers who won in that reverse auction, supplemental funds to help overcome the challenge of cost. So if you get a chance, again, I think there's one at each of your tables, please spend some time with the Florida Tax Watch report on closing the digital divide, the expansion of broadband internet service to the unserved areas of our state. What is broadband? So it simply to me is connectivity. But if you wanted to use the technical definition for it, the Federal Communications Commission has defined broadband connectivity or broadband access as essentially a service that is 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload. And so I know that's very tiny print up there, but if you could read it, what it would show you is what are some of the things you can do with these levels of speed. I mean, as you, quite naturally, as the speed increases, the capability of the services that you can access increases. So with 25 meg by 3 service, you have a pretty strong opportunity for robust services. You can look on the internet, you can watch, have streaming content delivered to your home. The more users you extend to that footprint or that connection, then the more you're sharing that bandwidth, so you maybe want to go up. Harvey's like, I could have done this for you, and you wouldn't be struggling right now. Great, thank you. You're I keep pointing it here. I gotcha. Thank you. Undoubtedly, like many things, the internet access was impacted by COVID. As an internet service provider, we saw internet usage and access peak over the course of the 20, or actually about 18 months we were measuring it. And if you are bored, you can go out to the NCTA website one day and see a little bit more in detail how internet traffic grew over the course of the COVID pandemic. And it certainly spiked. What's interesting about it is that it's not going back down. So even though many of us have returned to fairly normal lives, and we're leaving our house, we're going places, and we're traveling, and we're not sitting at home every day, that internet traffic is still continuing to sustain the levels that it grew to during the pandemic. Which brings us to the concern that we're really trying to focus on solving today, and that is the digital divide. And the digital divide is commonly referred to as the gap that exists between individuals who have access to broadband and to high-speed information and communications technology, and also have the digital literacy that's necessary in order to use it. And when there's a divide, this divide could be caused by many things. It could be caused by geographic access. I live in an area where broadband hasn't been extended. It could be caused by affordability concerns. It could be also caused by educational and socioeconomic barriers. Oh, good, right. Happy fingers. Great. The Pew Research, which I'm sure that many of you are familiar with, the Pew Research Center. The Pew Research has, during the pandemic, they did an evaluation across several classes of Americans, just to see what the impact of what the impact of having internet access was or was not to each of these organizations or each of these individuals in their lifestyle. And when you look at this Pew Research data, it's important to note that the things that people most suffered through in terms of not being able to accomplish when they were at home without access was they weren't able to look for jobs as much as they should. They weren't able to get access to educational and other professional services. And it's nothing that I didn't start this whole conversation with, but it's just to help evidence that I'm not making this up. Pew Research has also, they dug into the details, and it's very clear that lack of access to internet service is truly an impediment to a high-quality lifestyle. It also demonstrated that the impact was most prevalent in our poorest communities. So, about 20% of the people who live in rural areas don't have access to broadband. And when you look across socioeconomic factors, when you look at our low-income families, about 30 to 35% of low-income families usually don't have access. And those are two different causes. One is I can't afford it, and the other one is even if you brought it to my house. I don't have it at my house, so I couldn't, even if I could afford it, I can't get to it. I'm fortunate to work in the cable industry, and as we have evolved, I can tell you today I work for a cable company, but most of our subscribers are broadband subscribers. So that's how the services have evolved. So over 280 Americans have access to a cable broadband connection in their home. 14 million of these people have access to a low-income broadband product offering that is brought to the market by the service providers themselves. And 85% of U.S. homes have, they actually are engaging in purchasing the services. As we look at trying to find ways to find solutions instead of just simply complaining about the problem, the cable industry did a number of things over the course of the pandemic, including partnering with school districts, creating new programs and services to extend our network, working to do the Keep Americans Connected program to make sure that Americans stay connected. But even beyond that, we needed to establish some things that are going to be more long-standing. And when we spoke earlier, I mentioned that affordability was a challenge for many of our American citizens who don't have access. The Federal Communications Commission, post-pandemic, through the American Rescue Plan dollars and planning around moving the country forward, established a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And this program it was an extension of a program that was temporary called the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. This program for qualifying individuals will allow you to have access to a broadband connection through a service provider for $30, and you'll have a $30 a month credit from the federal government. So that's going to help us solve that connectivity issue for many Americans who struggle financially. And that program, I just have two examples here, will operate in the marketplace alongside other internet service provider options. So I work for Spectrum. Some of you may know it as Charter Communications. We have what we call Spectrum Internet Assist, which is a product offering we have for families who are low income and meet certain eligibility requirements. We will, in addition to our Spectrum Internet Assist program, have the Affordable Connectivity program available for customers throughout our marketplace. So we've talked about solutions that are going to help us with the affordability challenge. We still have now the concern about the people who just don't have access. And for the state of Florida, and I'm going to talk globally across the U.S. and then bring it back to the state of Florida. So the Federal Communications Commission publishes a report annually. In that report, they estimate that about 14.5 million Americans don't have access to broadband. Here in Florida, that's about 804,000 individuals. There's also Broadband Now. Broadband Now estimates that the number of Americans without access to broadband is actually closer to 42 million. And that the number of Floridians without access to broadband is actually closer to 2.4 million. So that helps, again, explain the range I spoke about earlier. Okay, there we go. When you look at the 804,000 Floridians who don't have access, they're not just in our rural counties. So many of them are in the rural counties, but they actually aren't just in our rural counties. And if you just quick inventory, there are 6 counties in Florida that have less than half of the citizens have access to broadband. And Florida is one of the most prosperous states in the country. In fact, someone the other day, it might have been, I'm not going to say who I thought it was because I don't want to misquote anyone, but I heard a statistic that Florida, if it was its own country, would be the 14th largest economy in the world. Yet, we still have 6 counties that don't have, that less than 50% of its occupants have access to broadband. And even though when you scale up, we get to a number that looks closer to 9 counties that look like they have 99% access or above, I could assure you that if you went to Bithlo or Christmas, Florida, which is in Orange County, where it looks like we have about 99.5% broadband access, I could find at least 1,000 people who would tell you they cannot get internet service at their home. So it's not just a problem for our rural counties. It's actually a problem for every address that is unserved across the state. And this is just, if you were to take a look at it from, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Just presume those green counties really are close to 100% served, which I just gave you an example that suggests that they're not. You can see still, Florida, for as prosperous as we are and for as complete as our efforts to expand broadband have been thus far, getting to 95 to 97% coverage, there's still a lot of counties where we have an access concern for Floridians. So how do we solve the challenge of connectivity? We talked about the challenge of solutions for the challenge of the financial issues, but how do we solve the challenge of connectivity? So the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is the federal fund I referenced earlier, is designed to supplement the cost. Many times in rural areas, the reason people don't have broadband is because of the cost to build. And the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund is designed to supplement the cost to build in these areas where there's zero broadband in the census block. You can presume, my company is publicly traded, so we actually want to make money. We would like to have as many customers as we can possibly afford to deliver service to. But the cost of deployment does become a challenge for some communities. So with RDOF, the FCC they set aside $20 billion, although they've only allocated $10 billion thus far, and that's going to go to help build out broadband service to some of these census blocks that are unserved. Charter was the largest, it was a reverse auction, so it was a competitive bidding process. Charter was the largest winner of locations in the auction, not the largest winner of money, which to me says we did a really efficient proposal. We were the largest winner of locations, which means we'll build service to about 1 million locations that don't have broadband today, most of them in rural areas across the country. The green indicates the states will be building in. Even though we'll get $1 billion from the Federal Communications Commission to do that build out, about $1.2 billion, we'll be spending another $3.8 billion in private sector capital to actually deliver those services. So it's not a government giveaway; it's truly a public-private partnership to bring necessary services to these homes. This is just another map of our footprint and our expansion effort. And for Florida, another thing that gives me pride about this Rural Digital Opportunity Fund effort is you'll pay a fee called the Universal Service Fee on your telephone bills. You've seen it, it's a very high tax. And you ever wonder where that money goes, right? Much of it went to deploy telephone services so everybody could pick up the phone and dial 911. We are a net payer state. Typically, Floridians' universal service dollars leave and go to other states, and we never see it again. This was an opportunity because some portion, the high cost fund, some portion of the $20 billion that's being used for RDOF, came from the Universal Service Fund. So it's us getting our money back. $192 million was allocated for the state of Florida, and Charter's RDOF award will bring $23 million to our network to help supplement the builds. There were 141,000 homes and small businesses that were eligible for this program in Florida. Charter will be building to almost 18,000 of those locations. And there are other service providers who also will be a part of this build-out. That build-out, we actually have 6 years to complete. Sounds like a long time when I told you that we're losing billions of dollars a month for every day people don't have broadband, which brings us to some of the solutions that Katie is working on. The Florida legislature just last session passed what we think is going to be the first step in actually getting some progress on getting broadband out to these communities. The bill that was passed, the Broadband Deployment Act of 2021, was championed by Josie Tomko in the House and by, I get in trouble. I mean, it was championed by Danny Burgess in the Senate, is actually it's in the law right now, but it wasn't funded. So the things that are moving forward is that the bill directed the Department of Economic Opportunity to actually establish a strategic plan, which they're going to be working to deliver to the governor and the legislature by June 30th, 2022. It also establishes the framework for a broadband grant program to allow public-private partnerships so that the Broadband Opportunity Program, which would be our broadband grant program for our state, so we could actually bid on opportunities to build to these areas, and so it establishes the rules for that program. It creates an incentive to accelerate broadband because the municipal electric co-ops the municipal electric companies offered a $1 pole attachment rate. Who would have ever thought I'd get up here and talk about high-speed broadband, and I would have to talk to you about utility poles in that context? But the easiest and fastest way to get broadband out is to attach to a wooden utility pole. And the municipal electric companies are offering a $1 attachment rate if you're building to an unserved area so that it could facilitate investment and encourage ISPs to bring broadband to those areas. And it also removes some of the infrastructure access challenges. So again, it was a great step forward in terms of moving Florida closer to full broadband access. What are some of the things that other states have done as it relates to expanding broadband connectivity? We've had, anybody hear of like trillions of dollars being spent? This thing, not gonna, regardless of whether you agree with the purpose and the effort behind the trillions of dollars that have been allocated for infrastructure investment, I would say that it's hard not to, I know, it's like a mower. It's hard not to agree that using those funds to make life-changing investments in each of our states is not a good idea. And so when you look across the Southeast, as Dominic mentioned at the start, I have the Southeast, so I love to look across my states and see, what's going on comparatively. Florida's my home, so I always want the most and the best, or at least where to set the bar. Alabama, who has 608,000 unserved locations, put aside $25 million and then came back recently and set aside another $250 million. Georgia just did a $300 million program. They had $2.4 billion in applications for $300 million to expand broadband. North Carolina put nearly $967 million aside to expand broadband access and to improve affordability and to create affordability solutions. And we are at the point in Florida where we have significant funds that are available. We have over $8 billion that was allocated for the state of Florida, and we are very excited and looking forward to seeing whether some of the federal funds that were allocated for Florida for infrastructure can be used for broadband. And it's actually one of those opportunities where the communities have come together, I think, in a very nice way. For example, we just recently turned up 750 locations in Hernando County, and we were able to partner with Withlacoochee Electric Cooperative, and they were, because, again, I mentioned earlier that the fastest way to get service out is aerial and to attach to utility poles, and Withlacoochee was the utility pole owner in that area. They did they were fantastic to work with, and they actually helped us accelerate, and I know 750 homes doesn't sound like a lot, but if you were one of the 750 people who didn't have broadband access and just got turned up last month, you're pretty excited. Our take rates are Charter's network reaches like 51 million people in the country. We have about 30 million customers. So it tells you everybody doesn't take our service. We're already exceeding that overall national take rate. So what we're hoping in Florida is that we'll take some of this one-time money and we'll invest in a lifetime of opportunity by putting $100 million into a broadband utility pole fund, which would allow the service providers to partner with the utility pole owners to accelerate the broadband deployment and reduce the costs, and then also fund $400 million for the broadband grant program. And so as we look at the state options, we're excited for that opportunity. We'll see where it goes. And then we're not sitting on at home waiting, though. We're actually, there's my timer. It says my time is up. We're not sitting at home waiting, though we're very excited, and we know Katie's working hard, and the DEO is working hard. We're actually working directly with some of our counties to have, to get projects on the board right now. So we recently just announced that we're going to partner with Flagler to try to get full broadband access. And again, that's a joint opportunity where we're going to be investing significantly in partnership with them and their ARPA dollars to expand broadband to their unserved areas. So in closing, I just wanted you all to have some perspective on how we can take this one-time capital investment and make life-changing, long-standing, forever decisions for Floridians who truly need access. And thank you for the opportunity to share that with you all today. Happy to take questions.
So Marva's agreed to take a few questions from members, and we have a microphone there. If anyone has questions, please come on up.
Thank you, Mark. I'm supposed to do something live. Thank you, Marva. I'll just talk loud. You mentioned the fastest way is aerial, but living in Florida with hurricanes and the ever-increasing dependency on broadband in our homes, how much more does it cost to bury the lines underground than to run them in the air?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the project because it costs in two ways. It costs in terms of time because it takes more time to deploy it takes more time, especially in these rural areas, to dig these. We're putting in enough fiber to go around the world twice. So that's a lot of digging and a lot of manpower. In fact, we just recently purchased some machinery to actually help accelerate it. So, it's not just a financial expense, it's also a time expense in terms of the delay. We have 6 years under the Rural Digital Opportunity Funds program to build the 1 million locations that we were awarded, but we also think that there may be as many as twice as many locations that don't have broadband. So when we talk about aerial being the fastest way, it's really just in sensitivity to getting service out. As utility pole owners take their service underground, we typically go underground with them. But since time is of the essence, aerial has really been our focus. And in some places we can't go underground. If the water table is too high, or if depending on the terrain, if it's too rocky, so we can't always deploy underground. Everybody here has access to broadband at home, right? Yeah, good.